Digital Forensics Book. Introduction. This book was created due to the pressing need to address the pervasive lack of digital skills in Europe. Despite that more youngsters are available to use basic technologies, the acquisition of advanced digital capacities is still a challenge in the continent, as well as in the rest of the world. Security and privacy are significantly impacted by this skill gap, which is especially apparent in industries that demand specific technical expertise. Computer forensics, a field that has a connection with technology and investigative science, is essential for protecting our digital environments and managing digital files. This topic is an important cornerstone in modern cybersecurity. Gaining knowledge in computer forensics will enable young people and organizations to navigate safely in a world where more cyber threats have immediate and serious risks. Computer forensics methods are essential for keeping confidence in personal and organizational digital environments, increasing the safety of all data. It is used to track down unwanted access, preserve evidence of cyber events, protect any kind of information, recover lost information from cyber attacks, etc. It can be applied in different fields, such as corporate security, law enforcement, IT, journalism, etc. Therefore, throughout all these chapters, youngsters and people of other ages will be able to acquire the digital toolkit, providing them with a deep understanding in this subject. The book offers an organized method for developing essential computer forensics abilities, making it suitable for beginners and those with some technical experience. Through useful insights and practical advice, readers will acquire the necessary knowledge to handle cyber crises and support a more secure, resilient digital society. This can be the difference between successful threat mitigation and disastrous data loss. This book is the beginning point on the path to a more secure digital future, regardless of whether you are a youngster, student, working professional, or just a digital citizen looking to expand your skill set. With this publication, we will contribute to the 3 pillars of the Shaping Europe's Digital Future strategy from the European Commission. Technology that works for people. We will strengthen digital skills throughout society, especially in youth communities. A fair and competitive economy. If more youngsters acquire these digital skills, we will indirectly increase the competitiveness of the entities they work for. In addition, any organization, public or private, of all sizes and in any sector, will also be able to acquire this knowledge. Watch the following video, Overview of Digital Forensics, by Isaka, HQ. Chapter 1. Physical Acquisition. The process of physical acquisition refers to creating a bit-by-bit copy of a storage device of a computer, or devices that holds electronic data like hard drives, internal or external, USB thumb drives, SD cards, mobile devices, and all kinds of devices that can store data. This process not only includes the files that are visible on the devices, but also the free space of the storage media. This means that if you have a computer with a hard drive of 1 terabyte of capacity and only is used 100 gigabytes, the process will acquire the entire 1 terabyte of data. This physical process acquires deleted files and metadata of the system that cannot be accessed using regular methods like in a computer file explorer. In most of the cases, this process is triggered by an investigation in which it is believed that an electronic storage medium was used to store files that can be used as evidence in said investigation. This process is used to preserve the integrity of the files and the metadata that indicates not only the type of file or its content, if not the date of creation, the author, in some cases, it contains geographical location, and when it was modified. The physical acquisition works in parallel by a good documentation of the process. In order to be presented, the devices in question need to be documented and must have the following documentation. Collection log. The collection log needs to enlist the entire information of the device. During the process, the devices needs to be identified, and it must be ensured that the device being investigated is the one that was provided to us to carry out the information extraction. For this, it is necessary to have the following fields in a collection log. Evidence ID. The name that you're going to assign to the data that you're going to extract. This will help to identify the image that you're acquiring, so you can tag the information to this ID. Custodian. The full name of the person that uses the device, in most of the cases, are corporate devices, but it is required to have the name of the users or the person that has the devices assigned to him. Evidence category. The type of device that you are going to image. Laptop, mobile device, drone, tablet, server, external hard drive. Collection type. This will indicate if it is a physical extraction, logical, or any other method used to acquire the image. Received date. The date when you receive the devices to image. This should match with the chain of custody. Return date. The date when you release the devices that were imaged. This should match with the chain of custody. Location. The physical space that you used for this process. It could be on site, or your office, or the location of the collection. Examiner. Who collected the device and imaged? Device. Manufacturer. Brand of the device. Device model. This will include the model and model number of the device. An example could be iPad 6th Gen/A1893. Device serial number. The serial number should match with the documentation of the owner of the device if it's from a corporation and it is registered under the name of the custodian. Asset number. For corporate devices, the companies usually assign an asset tag or asset number for financial control of assets. This number should be included if it's present. IMEI. If the device has a SIM card for data mobile services should be included. PIN, passcode. If a PIN or passcode is assigned to the device, needs to be provided for analysis. Source capacity. The size of the storage media. This is the full capacity of the media device. Encryption status. If data is encrypted, it needs to be documented with information of the encryption software and the encryption key. Imaging software. Provide the brand, name and version of the software used to create the physical image. Image size. Provide the brand, name and version of the software used to create the physical image. MD5. Hash. MD5 hash. Once that the image is complete, a hash number will be provided and should be compared with the verification hash. SHA1 hash. SHA1 hash. Once that the image is complete, a hash number will be provided and should be compared with the verification hash. SHA256 hash. SHA256 hash. Once that the image is complete, a hash number will be provided and should be compared with the verification hash. Start time. The time of the start of the imaging process. End time. The time of the end of the imaging process. Comments. This field is important to capture any details that might happen during the imaging process. Here are some examples. In case of physical damage of the device, if there is any accessory connected to the device, if power went down, if you needed to remove secure boot to image, any modification or configuration made to image the device. Chain of custody. For the physical acquisition process, it is necessary to have a chain of custody. This document refers to the handling of the devices that is under investigation and follows the custody of the device during the acquisition process. This document should contain some key elements to maintain a good understanding of the devices that are being processed. The key items to have in a chain of custody are 1. The general date, the date when the COC is being created. 2nd, evidence ID. Assign an ID to identify the evidence for the device that is being handled by the investigator. 3rd, location. Physical location, if it's on site, at the custodian's home, or the address where you received the device. 4th, device information, make, model, serial number, asset tag, or another identifier that you can see in the device. 5. Custodian. Name. The full name of the custodian, person that uses the devices. This could be different from who is handing the device over to you. 6. Handing over information, date, time, person who hands over the device with name and signature, person who receives the device with name and signature, the purpose of the handling over. Comments. Any comments about the device, it could be physical damage, passwords, conditions, accessories, etc. The forensic investigator always keeps the original chain of custody. He is the owner of the process and the document. If the custodian or person that is being investigated wants a copy, it can be shared, but the original document should stay with the evidence. If there are more than one device that is going to be analyzed, they can be listed in one chain of custody. The only condition is that they will need to be kept together during the process. If one device is going to be returned to another person, or before the additional devices, a chain of custody should be created for that specific device. Photographic evidence. In digital forensics, photographic evidence has a principal role for the documentation of the evidence, not only for the visual part, but also the metadata of each picture contains information that can be key evidence during the presentation of evidence in a legal matter. With new technologies, we can use the camera from a mobile device or professional cameras to take pictures of the device that is going to be imaged. We need to make sure to have important information during the acquisition of photographic evidence that can be listed as follows. Good picture quality. Create a label with the name of the custodian and take a picture with the device. Pictures from all the sides of the devices, top, back, both sides. Picture of the make, model, serial number, asset tag. If there is damage, take a picture of the area that is damaged and add comments in the COC and collection log. Enable location for the pictures, date and time. If possible, take a picture of the profile of the user in the device. This photographic evidence will be added to the same folder that will contain the chain of custody and collection log. Important information. Before you start the forensic imaging of a device, make sure that you have all documents signed, the approval of the legal department, custodian, or owner of the device to conduct the forensic image on this device. It is important to always have approval from all parties involved to avoid conflicts of interest with any of the key stakeholders during the investigation process. Prepare for a physical acquisition. The physical acquisition is a step-by-step process. We need to think on the importance of the process. The result of this process will be used as evidence of an internal investigation or in a lawsuit. Hardware needed for a physical acquisition. In the process of a physical acquisition, you will need the software or hardware to create the physical acquisition, a storage media that must be at least the same size as the host. This means if you're going to imagine a computer that has 1 terabyte of data, you will need a destination drive with the same size. In most of the cases, the image is smaller with compression enabled, but you need to make sure that you have enough space. The program that will be used to create the physical acquisition can be stored in the destination drive. When you're doing a live acquisition is when you boot into Windows and execute a program using admin privileges to create the physical acquisition, or a USB thumb drive if you are booting from an external drive. Software needed for a physical acquisition. There are multiple companies that have their own software to create a physical acquisition. Some of them are free, and others you need to pay a license. We are going to use the best free tools in the market to create these extractions. FTK image from Extero, https://extero.com, digital, forensic software, FTK Imager. You can download FTK Imager from the Extero webpage. Is it free? And you only need to fill out the form that is on the web page with your information. Kali Linux Live Boot, https www.kali.org get Kala Live. Kali Linux is a bootable USB software that has an option of forensic mode. This will block the USB ports until you mount the drive that you need to use as destination. Autopsy Digital Forensics, https www.autopsy.com, download. Autopsy will be used to analyze the created image and process the data to be presented as evidence. Documentation. The documentation process is key in this process. Here is how you will need to follow the documentation. Have your documents ready for the case. You will receive the device from the custodian or the person that has the custody of the device. When you receive the device, make sure to write down the time and date that you received the device. Type your name, serial number, make, model, and as much information you can fill while you are taking ownership of the device. Once you have filled the COC, ask the person that hand over the device to you to sign, write his/her name and signature. At this moment, you have possession of the device. Make sure that you are the only one in charge of the device. If someone wants to review the device or do any process, you will need to hand over the possession of the device by entering the time, date, name, and purpose of the change of ownership. Create photo evidence. Once you have possession of the device, take a picture of every angle of the device, top cover, bottom cover, front, back. If any accessory is connected or attached to the device, remove it and take a picture of it. Once the process is complete, you will need to release the device by writing your name, time, date, and signature on the tracker field. Physical acquisition process using FTK Imager. This process is called live imaging. This means that you're going to use the operating system of the computer to perform this process. This only works on Windows environments. For this process, download the latest version of FTK Imager using the link in the software needed for physical acquisition part of this book. You will need to register with your information to download FTK Imager, but it is a free program specific for this purpose. For the installation process and executing the program, you will need to be an administrator or have administrator credentials. Once you have the installer, here are the steps to install FTK Imager. Go to the Downloads folder and look for the latest version of FTK Imager. Double-click on it, and you will get an installation wizard. Accept the license agreement and select the destination folder. Leave the default settings and location to install FTK Imager. After the installation is complete, your copy of FTK Imager is ready to be used. The process will be explained in Chapter 5, Storage Media. There are different kinds of data storage media. Since the invention of computers, there is a need to store the data that will make the computer work. Historically, there are a lot of storage media devices that can contain the data we want to preserve, but in the present, we have 3 devices that are for common use to store forensics images and data storage. Hard disk drives, HDDs. The HDD has different sizes and types of connections. There are 2 types of HDD, internal and external. The HDDs can be found in 3.5-inch and 2.5-inch sizes. An internal HDD is the one that is installed inside a computer, laptop, desktop, server, etc. The internal HDD uses 2 types of connections: IDE, Integrated Drive Electronics, and SATA, Serial Advanced Technology Attachment. The IDE is the old bus transfer of HDDs. They are difficult to find in the present, but they can also be objects of an investigation in a forensic extraction. The SATA HDD are commonly used currently because they are reliable to use, and the write and read can be slow compared to other storage media, but it is a constant speed. The external HDD is created by using a 3.5 and a 2.5-inch internal HDD with an enclosure and a way to connect to a computer. They use different kinds of USB connectors to transfer the data between a computer and the disk. In both cases, the HDD, the speed of reading and writing data to the disk, depends on the mechanical spin speed of the disk. The most common HDDs have a speed of 5,400 RPM and 7,200 RPM. We can find other spinning speeds, but they are exclusive for different tasks. The data transfer speed of the HDD to a computer is the following. Task: writing, speed 60 megabits per second. Task: reading, speed 80 megabits per second. The HDD has a high storage capacity. They are reliable in the storage of data for a long term, and the cost of the HDD is lower compared to other storage media that can be used. The HDD uses mechanical parts and can be fragile when handling. If the drive is moved or falls during the read-write process, it can damage the entire disk. Solid-state drives, SSDs. The SSD has no moving or mechanical parts. It uses flash memory to store data. This characteristic helps to get high-speed data transfer for write and read process to the drive. There are internal SSDs and external SSDs. In the beginning of the use of SSDs, they replicated the size and shape of internal HDDs, but currently they are a rectangular shape with 22 by 80 millimeters, being the biggest SSD for the NVMe M2 drives that are the faster SSD in the market for commercial use. The speed of the SSD depends on the type of connector of SSD and its generation. The SATA SSD goes from 500 to 600 megabytes per second. The PCIe SSD goes from 3,500 megabytes per second to 14,000 megabytes per second. And the NVMe M2 SSD goes from 3,000 megabytes per second to 3,500 megabytes per second. It depends on the manufacturer, the type of SSD, and the technology of each manufacturer for writing and reading from the SSD. Watch the following video. SSD vs. HDD, which is best for you, from OnLogic. Hard drive startup phases. There are 6 startup phases to ensure the correct operation of a hard drive. The phases follow a sequence in order to book the operating system of the computer or the loading of the data in a correct way. If one of these phases had an error or skips one of these phases, the result will be an incorrect operation of the hard drive. This can happen if the hard drive has any type of damage, physical or logical damage. Understanding the internal parts of the hard drive will provide us knowledge about the correct function of the process. Power. On self-test or POST, when a computer is turned on, after the motherboard receives power from the power supply, it sends power to the hard drive. It starts the self-diagnostics process that checks the drive's components such as the position of the arm, the motor, the circuit board, and the spinning of the disks. If there is any failure during the post-process, the drive will fail to start, and you can hear clicking noises or beeping noises coming from the drive. Firmware initialization. The next phase is to load the drive's firmware that is embedded on the circuit board. This software controls the correct operation of the hard drive. It contains the drive's parameters and prepares the read-write head to start the reading or writing process to the drive.